Well, hello and welcome to the e-commerce podcast with me, your host, Matt Edmundson. Now, this is a show all about helping you deliver e-commerce wow. Yes, it is. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Great to have you with you. Great to have you with you. Great to have you with us, wherever you are watching or listening in the world from all the four corners of the globe. I'm really excited to be here and chatting with our guest today, Laura Richard from Level 5 Strategy. You know what? We're talking about the customer. Oh, yes. We're going to get into all that side of things. So don't go anywhere, unless it's to grab your notebooks and your pens if you can, because you're going to want to take notes on this one. I have no doubt. Now, if you are a new subscriber, a new listener to the show, very, very warm welcome to you. It's great to have you with us. Obviously, the usual plea, make sure you like and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from, because why would you not want to? And if you are a regular or you're just genuinely curious, I really need to get my words out better today, why not head over to the website ecommercepodcast.net, where you can also sign up for our newsletter. And every week we send out to you the notes and the transcripts from the show. They go straight to your inbox. If you can't take notes because you're out and about walking the dog, or you're listening in the car on the way to work, doesn't matter, because they'll all be in your inbox. If you sign up to the newsletter, you get them automatically. And we're going to start to actually beef out the newsletter soon. So do keep your eyes peeled for that. Not that we're going to send you any more newsletters, but each newsletter is going to add more value as we're starting to bring a few more things to it. So, you know, like to keep you in suspense, but watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's talk about our guest, Laura Richard. She isn't your average suit. By day, she is a growth guru at Level 5 Strategy, helping businesses scale through customer experience strategy. But when she's not strategizing, you might find her pumping up the crowd at a Particip Action event for advocating for organ donation. Okay, and tune in to hear her innovative ideas for building exceptional customer experiences and taking your business to the next level. Laura, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. It's great to have you here. What is,
Thanks, Matt.
it's great. Forgive my ignorance, but what is Particip Action? Did I pronounce that right, or did I butcher it?
You did. Particip Action's a national charity in Canada, a not-for-profit that's focused on increasing the physical activity of the nation. And so it's been around for about 50 years. Many in Canada remember it because there was some great spokespeople who back in the 80s and 90s had vignettes on TV, but now we do research and run campaigns and programs that helps get people active.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So do you do a lot of charity work? Or is this just sort of the one thing that you're involved with?
I do a fair bit, but this is my primary organization currently. I'm chair of the board. I've been on the board for 5 years, and it's actually an organization I'm really passionate about because my background's in sport and physical health and activity, and somehow I made my way into business and strategy, but I've managed to marry vocation and avocation through my work with Particip Action.
Wow, that's a pretty big deal. I used to be on the, I've been on a few charity boards in my time, and I've been an advocate for quite a few charities, and I find it's quite an interesting thing when you are an entrepreneur, you get the opportunity, I think, to do things like this, and I've often found myself, Laura, maybe this is where you tell me off slightly, but I've often found myself in situations where I look at a charity and go, oh, you could totally do that better because of X, Y, and Z, you know, the entrepreneurial thinking inside me. Let me come in and help you, dun, 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 dun. And I get caught up in it all, only to realize that actually it's me that probably needs the most help.
Well, and you know what? It's so hard. And I find sometimes it's difficult because you think, my gosh, like, couldn't we do this or that or the other thing? And so much comes down to governance. It comes down to the way the organizations are funded, what their donors are looking for, what their stakeholders need. And so it's a complex environment. I was actually having this conversation with my husband last week where he's an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, and he has recognized that finding his way onto boards is not necessarily the best use of his skill. It's on the outside of specific projects. And so, you know, it's I think a recognition of where do our skills lie and how can we best use them. And you can create great impact, whether you're on the board or creating value by coming up with new ideas that benefit charity.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, you know, if you're listening to the show, and you're involved in e-commerce, you obviously know digital. You're getting into it, and I think actually figuring out a way to support and get involved with charity is a good thing to do, even if it's just promoting that charity on your website. Some of our websites, like our supplement website, we partner with Vitamin Angels. There's a whole bunch of things that we do, and I think actually it's not a bad thing. And I don't want to stay on my soapbox too much longer, but I think as entrepreneurs, we've got a responsibility there a little bit to help make the world a better place.
Well, I think you're right. And I think the other thing to think about, especially in the e-commerce space, is creating relationships with consumers is
Yeah.
paramount. And consumers are looking for organizations, for brands that are giving back, that have a purpose beyond the products and services that they
Yeah.
sell. And so it's actually advantageous to e-commerce brands to have affiliations, whether it's through some portion of donation or more deeply in terms of connection to a cause. It's beneficial to them, to their growth, and so that's an area that I think more can align around, just even from the outside of how are they developing their brands.
Yeah, again, super. I mean, don't just do it for the sake of doing it. I think you've got to be a bit authentic in it. But I
Agreed.
do think that the consumers now, because this is how you differentiate, I think, from Amazon. Talking about the whole digital David thing, which is a big passion of mine. How do you take on the big giants? Well, fundamentally, they can't be you. They can't have your values. They can't be that
Absolutely.
version of you. They can't tell your story. And I think who you are, doing charity work and who you align with is a big part of your values, isn't it? Like if I was to say, represent, I don't know, Tom's or the Red Cross or something on my website, that tells a consumer instantly what kind of brand we are. And what
Yes.
kind of values we have. And I think it's not a bad thing to distinguish yourself. It's not a bad thing to sort of put your flag in the ground and say, this is what we stand for. And we're looking for customers that like that and sort of have the same value set.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on in that. And especially for e-commerce brands that are going up against the Goliaths, having an authentic story, whether that's through charity alignment or through a founder's story or through some type of an authentic storytelling, is really critical to creating relationship and emotional connection with consumers.
Yes. Well, and we've only just started, Laura. I mean, we just the conversation
Diving right into it, Matt.
just straight into it. Tell me, then, let's just bridge a few connections in my head and in the listener's head. So you do this charity work. You're, chair of the board for this Canadian charity, but you run a company called Level 5 Strategy. I mean, if you're seeing the video, ladies and gentlemen, which I know 99.98% of you don't, it's all audio, so you have no idea what's behind Laura's head, but there's a lot of well-known logos. So tell me about Level 5 Strategy and what it is you do.
Yeah, so Level 5 Strategy is a boutique management consulting firm. We are a strategy firm. And what differentiates us is we help companies create strategies that actually stick. One of the
Oh,
problems in strategy is that 75% of them fail. And
yeah.
so we really pride ourselves in helping our clients develop strategies that stand the test of time, that can be implemented, and that their teams can really rally behind and implement.
So I mean, I'm slightly off topic here, but I'm very curious. What is the one thing that most companies are doing then that means the strategy won't stick? What's the biggest mistake we're all making?
I think the biggest thing is not actually getting their team involved in the strategy forming. And so stakeholder engagement and alignment to what's actually going to be done. And therefore, it gets just rolled out as the indoctrination of where are we going, and people don't necessarily believe it or buy in, and they don't know how they're going to implement it. And so getting engagement early and often with your teams is what we have found to be one of the most critical success factors to getting a strategy developed that will actually roll out and be implemented successfully.
So here's the $64 million question then. I see how if I'm going to do a strategy, getting employee involvement makes a lot of sense, and we've learned that lesson the hard way, rather than coming in like Superman pretending to have all the answers. Usually, which I don't. It turns out, who knew, right? So I sort of see the benefit of that, given that we're talking about consumer stuff a little bit. Have you come across brands that have got consumers and customers involved in their strategy, almost like a stakeholder, and seen that
Absolutely.
work well?
Yeah, and we do that a lot actually with clients when we're developing their strategies, actually understanding what does the consumer, the customer want. One of our clients, Canadian Tire, has an incredible consumer customer panel. It's hundreds of thousands of people
Oh,
large.
wow.
And they go to their customers all the time for input on new products, for feedback on strategy. They're looking for input constantly in order to shape what they're doing next.
So how do they run? I mean, I don't know if you know the answer, or even if you can tell me really, but I'm kind of curious, how would you run that kind of consumer panel? Because I can see that, like just with my own ecom businesses, I kind of think, well, that would be a great thing to establish. I mean, we have a VIP clients, for want of a better experience, probably the same thing, really, Laura. And we email them out, just little updates, getting their thoughts, feedbacks, and stuff like that. We certainly don't have 100,000 people on it, but I think actually, how do you do that well? How do you do that kind of consumer panel well?
Yeah, so not necessarily specific to that client, but in general, one of the pieces that I think companies really miss on is giving the customers feedback on what have you done with the information that they have provided you. Excuse me.
Okay.
So often, you ask for input, but do you actually close the loop? Do you follow up with them to say, "Here's what we've done with this information. Here's what we found, and here's what we're going to do next." And that builds a two-way relationship instead of
Mhm.
just always asking for input and maybe giving a promotion or an opportunity to win something. Sure, that's great in the moment to get people involved in giving you feedback, but the actual values that they feel really connected to your brand is in giving them the closed loop feedback of what you've done with the information.
That's really interesting. Would you ever have? I'm just trying to think. Just sort of the old co-op theology, wasn't it? I mean, going back from years. It's not so much these days. But would you ever have it where, as a brand, you kind of go, well, listen, I want to take some of our most important clients, or the ones maybe that are biggest brand advocates, and I want to turn them into some kind of shareholder or stakeholder in the business, for whatever that means, that you kind of have these sort of pseudo board meetings that you get them involved with, and they drive the company in some respects like that. Does that work? Have you come across
I
anything
think
like that?
I haven't come across anything like that, but I think it's a really interesting idea of like creating almost like an advocacy board of
Mm.
your best customers. Now, I think a question to ask is: Are your best customers akin to the majority of your
Yeah,
customers, or
good
are you
question.
going to
Yeah, yeah.
start shaping your strategy based on the needs of a small segment? And that's where really understanding the breadth of your customers and who are the different segments, what are they looking for, is equally as important as playing to what your high value customers are looking for.
Yeah, it's something that it's brilliant advice, but it's something that I've been thinking about off and on over the last few years. Like, how could you get customers more involved with the company? And it's in other words, how do I make them stakeholders and shareholders? I think it's a really interesting question. I don't have any answers right now, and I know that some companies have done some things over the years with that, which I think is quite interesting. But watch this space. I don't know. If you ever come across anything, let me know, Laura, because
I will be following up with you, Matt, if I come across
yeah,
anything.
yeah,
So I
yeah. I'd
think
be
you're bang on and looking at that because like how do you combat the Amazons of the world?
mm,
What can you do that's unique and different? Like that is a space that you might have the opportunity to create some value for customers that Amazon can't.
yeah, yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? We know that e-commerce is good. We know that subscription commerce is better usually, and we know that membership commerce is even better than that, right? Because people feel like a sense of belonging, and they're. It's a bit like I'm paying the membership to be in the gym. I'm here. I'm involved, but it's all based on a sort of a transaction. So I have to pay to feel like I belong. Which, as the business owner, you kind of go, well, that's great because I'm getting the money. But the reason why is intriguing to me is because you're creating that community, that sense of ownership, without there necessarily being a financial transaction involved. But there has to be some skin in the game. I'm not quite sure what it is or what it looks like, but it's one of those, because I think the more your and I mean, maybe you can speak to this. I mean, it's an obvious statement to make. The more your customers feel part of your community, the more likely you are to retain them and keep them coming back, right?
Absolutely. And there's different aspects of what makes, extremely customer-centric organizations. Do you have a well-defined promise to your customers? Do you understand what matters most to them, where it matters to them? Are you constantly innovating and trying to continuously improve in order to meet their needs and evolving expectations? And how are you leveraging their input in order to make decisions? So these are just some of the dimensions of what makes extremely customer-centric organizations. And those are organizations that are proven time and again to retain customers more, to drive loyalty, to increase purchase value, and that loyalty is what returns results financially.
So, can I ask you a question? Do you run an e-commerce business, or is it just the agency that you have?
So no, I do not run an e-commerce business. No,
Okay, that's good.
the firm that I am. Yeah,
That's good. That's exactly where I need you to be right now for my next question. So let's assume you were going to start an e-com business, right? And you, I don't know, whatever it is that you would sell, but you're going to sell something. And how would you then think about your e-commerce business? You're not Amazon. You could sell on Amazon, but you don't want to. You want to keep it all on your site. I mean, you've mentioned obviously the well-defined promise, understanding what matters most and stuff like that, which are great questions, but I'm kind of curious, where would you start to build this customer centricity into your own e-commerce business? What would be foundational for you just starting out?
I think the number one thing for me would be to have a well-defined problem, to have a problem that hasn't been solved for, or is not being solved for well, for a specific target audience. And especially starting out, I would be a small e-commerce business initially. I'd want to be focused on a niche. And so for a small target audience, is a well-defined target audience, what is an unmet problem that they have?
And how would you go about them finding out what that unmet problem is?
I think often it comes from your personal experience. I actually had a moment in the car a number of weeks ago where a really bad acute back injury. I need a massage tomorrow. How am I going to find one? It was impossible for me to find a masseuse that was qualified, that had availability the next day. And so I thought, oh man, like I could really solve for this by creating an aggregator. Like that would be a pretty good business. It would be a business that solves a problem. I think often it comes from personal experience, whether that's you as an individual or those within your circle, having seen and heard what is problematic in people's lives, and that you feel the inspiration and you have the skill set and capabilities to go and solve for.
It's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because I think as you're talking, I'm thinking, actually, what entrepreneurs are very good at is seeing the opportunity inside of a problem, aren't they? They see a problem
Absolutely.
and they go, "Oh, we could fix that somehow."
We can fix it. Exactly. It's you can't, I don't think you can really think you're going to be successful if you start a business going, oh, we're going to just do this cheaper or do this better. You have to see something and go, we have a unique way of addressing this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you do? I'm kind of curious in a lot of ways. You see the problem. What I tend to find is, certainly with me and certainly with a bunch of people that I speak to, you see the problem and you start to think, oh, I think I could solve this, and you start to create a solution. But very quickly you get tunnel focused on one solution. And you start to drown out all the other possible solutions because, no, this is your baby now. You've sort of, you very quickly get on the railroads. I don't know if you've noticed that, but how do you draw in best practice, I suppose, to solving that problem? Always keeping a focus and a mind on the consumer.
I think outside in is so important. And so along the way, as you're designing the solution, having checkpoints where you're going back and testing with your target group to understand, are we actually designing this in a way that is meeting the problem effectively, that's going to be designed in a way that it meets the needs and is the right pricing? Do we have everything in place that is going to be palatable to our target audience? And so through focus groups, through customer research, and then being open to change is really important for entrepreneurs, for organizations who can get tunnel vision and think their way is the best way, is the right way. Really designing from an outside in standpoint and having the humility to recognize that your customer is going to be right, because your customer is going to be the one that's buying.
Really, really powerful. It fascinates me, isn't it? Because being open to change is perhaps one thing that people are not very good at, as you know, as we think we are, but I think in reality we're also not at the same time. So you're defining the problem, which immediately I think starts to create that customer focus, doesn't it? Because you're understanding life from the customer's point of view, and you're given a solution which solves the pain point, which people are instantly going to buy. So you've done that well. But what kind of experiences would you create on your website maybe that wouldn't be available if you were just selling that product on Amazon as a commodity?
That's a great question. I think it really comes down to how have you created differentiation in what your brand promise is? What are you promising to customers? And then how does every interaction on your website reinforce that brand promise? And so, if your value proposition, your promise is around personalization, do you show experiences on your website where other customers have personalized the product? Do you have, like the automobile industry that has these incredible configurators for designing your next automobile? Do you have front and center on your website a configurator that allows customers to really personalize what their own product experience is going to be? And so it starts from what is your differentiated promise, and then you need to design the experiences in order to reinforce what you're telling customers you're going to deliver for them.
Who do you see doing this well, curiously, at the moment? Does anything sort of spring to mind where you see companies doing this well?
Oh, that's a great question. Not really. There's not a lot that are doing it particularly well. I think the auto industry is a good example of how do you personalize the product experience. That's a really good example. But other examples would be like of Zappos in terms of how they provide exceptional customer service. And so there's a few unique brands that have really done a great job of defining a promise that is differentiated for themselves and then delivering on that through the types of experiences they create.
Years ago, when we had this beauty business, which we moved from Jersey, which is a small island off the north coast of France. For those of you who don't know, I'm not talking about New Jersey. I'm talking about the actual island of Jersey. It was based on Jersey. We moved it over to the UK, and for reasons which I won't bore you with at this particular point in time. But I remember when we moved it, a friend of mine from Dallas, Texas, I was talking to him about the business and just sort of one or two of the things that I was thinking through. And he drew on a piece of paper for me. You may have seen this kind of thing before, but he drew on a piece of paper it was actually on a napkin in a coffee shop, I think. He drew a triangle. And in each corner of the triangle, he wrote a different word. So in one corner, he wrote price. In another corner, he wrote quality. In another one, he wrote service. And he said, these are the three things. You can have a quality product, so the quality of the product could be high or low. You could take a quality product, you could sell it at a low price and focus on those 2 points of the triangle. What you can't do is have a quality product, sell it at a low price and deliver exceptional customer service. It just can't be done, right? And so he's like, pick the two which makes the most sense to you. Now at the time, Laura, our business model was very much quality product at low price. It's part of the reason why we're shipping from Jersey. We had all kinds of VAT benefits at the time, but that's another story. But our customer service was not great. And so when we moved it to the UK, we made a seismic shift in our thinking to be a much more customer service centric business, because we no longer could compete on the lower price because we didn't have those advantages. And so we thought, well, the only way that we're going to win this, because other sites were selling the same product, the only thing that we could do was really make our customer service so much better than everybody else's. And so that's what we tried to do. Now, within a year of doing that, the first year our sales fell, which I thought was interesting. I wish I could sit here and say, well, sales just instantly transformed. But because of the way that order count worked for this particular industry, it took a good sort of 6 to 8 months to weed out the people that were bargain hunters previously and actually those who wanted to experience good customer service, because it's interesting, isn't it? And so as our customer experience got better, the second year that we were trading, our sales increased massively. And the massive increase came from returning customers, which I thought was really interesting. So it took between 12 and 24 months to really see the impact of this sort of big shift in our business.
Yeah, you changed your value proposition, right? And
Massively,
so
yeah.
you had to really find the customers and deliver for the customers a different value proposition. Than some aligned to that and others didn't. But what you saw was that was a better long-term strategy for the business.
Yeah, by the end of the second year, we were 20% higher than our highest ever year previously. And so it was quite a radical thing that actually and I could sit here and sort of talk to you about examples of this all day long and what we did and how we did it. But it was the principle of the thing, understanding that actually the differentiator for us between us and Amazon and everybody else was actually us. It's what we stood for. It was our story, our proposition, what we could deliver, what we could do better than no one else. What was that question Jim Collins always used to ask him? Good to great, what can you do better than anyone else can do in the world, sort of thing. And so we just decided to settle on customer service, especially for a commodity website. It really helped us. And so I'm really intrigued by this whole customer thing. I'm even more intrigued, Laura, why Sadaf, who is the show's producer. Again, listeners, I don't know how much you know about this, but what happens with our show is there's always something called the pre-call. So when a guest comes on the show, like Laura, you met with Sadaf, right? You had a call with Sadaf, who is the show's producer. She's a lovely woman, beautiful lady, very glamorous, she's Canadian as well, Canadian Pakistani lady. And she's just an absolute legend, married to a Scouser here in Liverpool. And he's a great guy. Anyway, I'm kind of going off on one here. But Sadaf just wrote in my notes, pre-call, Matt, talk about emotions.
Talk about emotion. We haven't done any of that yet, Matt.
We haven't talked about emotions. Why would Sadaf write in my pre-notes to talk about emotions? Let's deal with that.
Yes, let's talk about that. So I think it comes down to how we at Level 5 define brand, and also what we see as motivating customers. And so over 20 years of researching what motivates customers, what drives their behavior, what we've seen is that it is equally rational benefits and emotional benefits. And if you ask a customer, why did they buy a product? They are unlikely to be able to tell you about the emotional benefits that they received through that experience or the purchase. But when you dig in, it was there. And so ask somebody why they purchased a new phone. They'll tell you likely about the display. It's easy to use. The camera quality is fantastic. I like the blue message bubble instead of the green message bubble. There's all those things that they'll tell you about. But what they won't communicate is how it makes them feel. And it's the feelings of trendiness. It's the feelings of being creative. It's feelings of connection with their peers that they can't express. But emotions drive 50% of consumer behavior. And that's really important to understand when you are defining a brand, when you're defining what the promise is, what emotional benefits do you want to communicate, deliver, extract for your customers? And how do you actually deliver that through the experiences and touch points that you create along the customer journey?
So I'm a I always I'm a bit old school, Laura. So I'm aware of the phrase that people buy with emotion and justify with fact. Right. That phrase for me has been around since the dawn of time. It feels like, in our sort of old traditional sales days. And I used to sit there and I think, well, it's a great phrase to roll off the tongue, but I don't understand what that actually means on a day-to-day basis for me. Now, you have to understand I'm an emotional Luddite in many ways. My wife tells me I have three basic emotions. The one I operate in 98% of the time is, I'm all right. Yeah, life's good.
I'm
And
good
then,
here.
yeah, I'm okay. And then there's the emotion, which is I'm just ecstatic about something for some reason. And then the other one is I'm just really annoyed. Someone's annoyed me. Probably driving the car, I experience that emotion more
So you
times than
haven't
anything.
read a lot of Brene Brown then, have you, Matt?
I've listened to her TED talk and go, Brene Brown, you're a legend. But I just there are some things a bit old school. I'm like I say, a bit Luddite is probably maybe emotionally constipated a little bit. So I sit here and I listen to things like that and I go, this is great, and I get it. I get that from my point of view. Likely as not, everything I've bought has been an emotional decision. Here I am saying that I only have three. The reality of it is I just don't know what I'm doing really. How do I bring that into my business? How do I become emotionally aware of what motivates my customers, and how do I bring that into my messaging, my marketing, how does that make a difference?
Yeah, so it starts with customer research, and there's ways of actually getting at what are the emotions underneath the rational, what we call the gets. What do people want to get from a product? There's ways at getting at underneath that, at how do they actually want to feel, or how do they feel as a result of what they get. And then it comes into the way that you design your product, the messaging that you create. Comes into the experiences that you deliver. One of the examples, and it's not product, it's more service that I love, is working with an insurance client. The claim and making an insurance claim can be an incredibly stressful experience, right? And the research that we did showed that at the first notice of loss, when you're initially calling in and saying, I've had a car accident, what people want to feel is understood. They want to feel safe. And so it's actually in the training that you give to your front line. It's the messaging that you give them in order to help them evoke those emotions in customers that results in the feeling. It's not necessarily just what you put out and deliver and market on your product. It's the entire experience that results in the emotional connection.
And this is important, isn't it? Because I think I've seen a lot of websites will use emotive titles or headings, as a way to draw you in. But then the rest of it kind of doesn't feel like it connects with that somehow. Like it's just a word ChatGPT is put in a title.
Absolutely. And the more that we're using chatbots and automation, the more risk there is that you move away from actually delivering on the feelings that
Mm.
consumers are looking for in those critical moments, what I'd call the moments of truth in their experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you ever use AI to try and analyze how people might feel? I'm in my head, I'm thinking if I went to ChatGPT or Claude or, whatever your chatbot of choices these days and said, listen, I serve this product to this market. How do they, what kind of emotions would they be feeling in terms of why would they buy it? I wonder if AI would be able to answer that.
AI can start to answer it. Actually, we have a partner that's using large language models to analyze customer input, and that can
Mm.
be structured and unstructured feedback that comes from customers. And they're using models that get at what are the emotions that customers are feeling and what is the target state. And by
Yeah.
linking, the good outcome and how people felt during a good outcome to a bad outcome, you can actually understand what are the emotions that drive towards your target.
So you're using the word good. It just reminded me of something here. Again, I heard it from I'm desperately trying to rack the recesses of my brain into which copywriter said this. But they talked from an emotional point of view. They talked in copywriting about talking about the negative emotions being more powerful than the positive ones, and how the phrase they used was give them a headache and sell them the aspirin, kind of a thing. Is that right? Does that still work, or is it a bit more nuanced than that?
I think it's more nuanced than that. What we've actually found in brand experience is that negative emotions are 3 times more powerful than positive emotions. And so if you have pain points in your brand experience, you can expect that you're probably going to lose a customer because those are 3 times more powerful than the positive emotions that you evoke. I think it is more nuanced than saying, okay, we're going to create a problem and then sell the solution.
It'd be nice if it was that simple.
It would be.
It would be really nice if it was that simple. So you're talking. You say that there are ways to understand. I like the word you use, gets. To understand and dig into some of these gets. What is a good key way for me to do that with my own customers?
Well, you can do primary research that looks at the ideal. What is the ideal brand or ideal experience in your category, and what do they want to receive from that brand? And so by looking at the ideal, you can decide where do you have the ability to differentiate, where are your capabilities best suited, and so that you can hone in then on those gets and feels in the way that you're designing, communicating, and delivering experience. And so primary research I would recommend for organizations to pursue to actually understand what are the priority gets and feels of their targets.
Priority gets and feels. I feel like I'm learning a whole new language here, Laura. This is great. I remember we, with one of our ecom businesses, we sat down and we did some of this primary research. We were like, I wonder, again, we were looking how to differentiate. We were trying to understand how do we live up to our core brand values and all these sorts of things, questions that we were asking. And so we did some market research. We talked to our customers, and this was with the beauty brand, and we had an average order value of over £70, which is a lot of money from bearing in mind, again, bloke, happy with shower gel, my life's good, right? There's no way ever I would have thought to spend £70 on skincare. I just wouldn't have. But a lot of people, thousands of people, were spending on average £70 on skincare. And you're like, well, this is interesting, isn't it? And I really wanted to understand why.
It's a really competitive category as well.
Yeah. I mean, amazingly competitive category. And so we were like, well, why were they doing it? And after the research, we discovered that actually skincare was super important, and it was 98% female, a client base, right? Skincare was important. Brand was important. That once somebody had found a brand of skincare that worked for them, it was almost impossible to get them to change brand. That was something that we discovered. They wanted to stick to that brand, but they were open to suggestions to add to it, depending on what kind of issue they had. What we quickly realized was that our customers weren't buying skincare. This was a blinding revelation for us. What they were buying was a gift, and a gift specifically for themselves. It was a treat. It was like pampering. It was a reward, I suppose, in many ways. And when we started to see that that's what we were selling, we started to change quite a lot of things. So we changed the box that we sent stuff out in. We changed the packaging. We started to wrap things up in tissue paper. We used quite gift-orientated language, treat yourself, and all that sort of type of language. We tapped into this concept of it being a gift. And this was another one of those pivot points in our history where actually you can go back to that point and go, that moved the needle much more than something else. Do you know what I mean? Like, the latest social media tool or whatever. It made a phenomenal difference just understanding emotionally what was going on with our clients when they were buying the products.
I love that example, Matt. And so your customers were telling you that they were in the emotional zone of wanting to feel cared for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you were delivering care in all of those touch points. And so with a brand promise built around we're going to care for you, help you treat yourself, you have that roadmap of what do we need to do in order to deliver on this promise. It's a
Yeah.
phenomenal example.
Yeah, we came up with the tagline "Happy, Remarkable You," and this became the whole messaging and ethos behind the company for this whole gift ideology, and and it intrigues me because if I was, again, it's different horses for different courses and at different markets, and understanding what it is your customer is wanting to feel at that point in time when they're buying, and I mean, you've talked about primary research. What other methods could we use? Because it strikes me that if the customer doesn't actually know what it is they want to feel at that point in time, how would we know? Because it's not always that straightforward.
Well, I think this is where AI can really help. And I mentioned that we're working with a partner now who is using large language models to analyze these
Mm,
things. And it's actually in digging into like, well, what are customers saying? And you can analyze underneath that. Well, what does that mean in terms of what they're feeling? Because it's hard for them to communicate exactly what they're looking for. But what we found overall is when you ask about the ideal and what is an ideal experience, you do get a lot of value by asking the question. And so whether that's in quantitative research or by running focus groups, you
hmm
can really get a lot by targeting what's the ideal experience and what's the ideal brand that a consumer is looking for.
Love that. Love that. How would it work for somebody who's listening to this going, this is all great, Matt, but I don't have, you know, tens of thousands of dollars to go and commission a research company to go and figure all this out for me. It's just me, myself, and I running this thing as a side hustle. Where do they start?
You know what? I would start by asking questions on the channels that they own, right? Like very simply, often companies over rotate on surveys and you're sending customers 10-minute long surveys and then not really doing much with the results. But even somebody on their own, like you can ask at the end of a purchase experience or if somebody drops off one or two questions, then actually use that information. And
Hmm.
structuring well structured questions is going to get you a long way. So go beyond the standard satisfaction or NPS type of
Yeah.
questions and actually ask things that's going to give you insight into where you're missing the boat or where you might have a pain point unexplored or unsolved for, and experiences that you haven't tapped into yet.
Again, I don't know if you've got any examples of companies that you think have done this well. Thousands of companies send me on the scale of 1 to 10. How likely are you to refer us? Well, about a 2 now, dude, because I'm just not that impressed with your own imagination here. But what sort of questions would you see working well here?
So I think it is, those MPS type questions are about gauging over time, but it's
Mm,
about going underneath that. And so again, using AI and large language models, you can actually have surveys that are very customized to the individual. So what went well today in
mm,
your experience? And then based on what the customer responds, that model will go deeper. Okay, well, that didn't go well. Tell us why. Why didn't that go well? What did go well? Why did it go well? And so if you keep probing, you're going to get a lot more value than the standard rote question of, rate us on a 1 to 10 and thank you very much.
yeah. I've seen actually companies using I can't remember the name of the platform, but I've seen them using the sort of single question on a page kind of ideas where you go through to a page, they ask you a question, and in effect, you answer that question, it takes you to another page which asks you another question, or it goes deeper on the previous one. And the more you're on it, the deeper it's going to go, and it's just going to keep going. But it just says, listen, if you want to bail at any time, feel the freedom. Feel the freedom. You're not locked in for the next an hour. But if you've got an hour to spare, I'm going to ask you an hour's worth of questions. And it's just this perpetual, consistent sort of drive with questions. I'm bored now, I'm out. I've seen companies start to use that a little bit, where I decide as the customer, when I bail on this questionnaire, I don't know if that's effective or not really, but I've seen it more and more.
Yeah, I don't know if it's effective. I think maybe, you want to say it's a three probe limit and then thank you. You don't always want to be going as deep as you possibly can. You can wear out the well of customer generosity and their willingness to engage with you. But it is a new approach, and I think we're constantly refining. Now we have so many new tools that are at our disposal, and we're just going to continue to learn and optimize.
So going back to your own e-commerce website, Laura, you've set it up, you've solved the problem, you have got a differentiated promise that's affecting your business. You're very consumer aware. You understand what it is they want to feel. How do you ensure that all of that actually translates to stuff on the site or to customer experience? That it's not just another nice document, somewhere, or a nice tagline. How do you get it to sort of influence and impact what it is you're actually doing?
Well, I think it's how you run meetings with your team. It's the stories that you tell. It's the training that you run. It's every aspect of experience that ensures that this is not just words on a page, that you're actually able to deliver what you have promised. And so every single decision that you make has to be run through the lens of, is this reinforcing or eroding our promise to customers?
It's as simple as that.
Just
It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? But again, I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Do you find that with companies, their promise changes over time? Because this is, again, something that I think people struggle with in their thinking. It's like, well, I can set my customer values, I can set my brand promise, but I don't know if that's where I'll be in a few years' time. So can it change? Do these things evolve?
They change over time. There are certain aspects that should be enduring, though, because if you're constantly pivoting on your customers, then they don't know what to expect from you. And I think you run a real risk of losing customers that way. And so your promise should be relatively enduring. What you're actually trying to do, like what is the purpose of your organization? Going back to what's the problem we're trying to solve, well, that should be relatively enduring. And if there are better ways that we can solve this problem, then great, let's evolve that. But you should have components that are certainly enduring over time, and that you're not, constantly shifting the ground underneath your customers.
So if there's one book or one YouTube video that people listening should watch on this whole topic, that's that you feel like's had a massive influence on you, what would it be?
Well, I'm gonna pump the founder of Level 5's book for sure. He's written 2 books, and the Brand Driven CEO is one that I would highly recommend, because it dives into the topics that we've discussed today and more, in terms of what are the really important considerations for any leader in terms of being brand driven and customer focused.
The Brand Driven CEO. What's the name of the author?
David Kincaid.
David Kincaid. Check it out. I assume it's available on Amazon and where all good books are sold.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Laura, listen, we've got to, it's amazing how quickly time goes. We've got to that stage of the conversation where I'm going to ask you for the question for Matt. This is where you get to ask me a question. I'm not going to answer it now. I'm going to answer it on my social media channel. So if you want to know how I'm going to answer this question, follow me on the old Instagram, to search Matt Edmundson. But here's the question, Laura, what's it going to be?
So you talk to a lot of people, Matt, really smart individuals that are focused on various aspects of building organization, optimizing them. What's the most important thing that you think somebody starting an e-commerce business needs to be focused on?
Oh, okay. Very good. Well, I will answer that on my social media channels. Come follow me on social media. You will find the answer. Laura, listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to find out more about you, find out more about Level 5, want to connect, want to reach out, maybe they've got some questions, Maybe they want to put that logo on the wall behind you. I do. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Laura Richard with Level 5 Strategy, and also via email, LRICHARD at level5strategy.com.
Fantastic. Love how you spelled that out, as though somehow that's going to stop the spam bots getting it. One can but hope, Laura, one can but hope. But listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Genuinely really appreciated it. Enjoyed the conversation. And this whole thing about customer experience is just one of my, I just love it. I adore it. I'm going to go find the book and I'm going to read it just because I want to. And I think we all should go and find stuff like that. But yes, thank you, Laura. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
So, what a fantastic conversation. We will, of course, link to Laura's info in the show notes, which you can get along for free with the transcript at ecommercepodcast.net. Or, of course, if you sign up to the newsletter, it's going to come straight to your inbox. So you can find all of that stuff there. But what a great conversation. Huge thanks again to Laura for joining me today. Now, be sure to follow the e-commerce podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, because we've got yet more great conversations lined up. And of course, I don't want you to miss any of them. And in case no one has told you yet today, let me be the first. You are awesome. Yes, you are. Created awesome. It's just a burden you have to bear. Laura's got to bear it. I've got to bear it. You've got to bear it as well. Now, the e-commerce podcast is produced by PodJunction. You can find our entire archive of episodes on your favorite podcast app. The team that makes this show possible, as I mentioned, is the just astounding Sadaf Bainon and Tanya Hutzlak. Our theme song was written by Josh Edmundson. And as I mentioned, if you would like to read the transcript or show notes, simply head over to the website ecommercepodcast.net, where instantly you can sign up to the newsletter and get all of this good stuff coming straight to your inbox for free. Now, that's it from me. That's it from Laura. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.